so happy to have Carlton Mathis back for another round of talks. You didn't know how well-rounded Carlton is. He gave a talk on tools a couple weeks ago, and we know him as the Bluebird man. You know, basically, he's filmed. He's got some really nice little videos of some of the things he's taken with his backyard. And if some of the people on here don't know who Carlton is, he's a longtime master gardener, and he's been very active in so many things. He pulls us out of the fire so many times, which I appreciate all the time. And so, and he's just enjoyable to work with. So sit back and enjoy today's lecture.
Okay, thanks everybody for showing up. Yeah, today I'm talking about bluebirds, and this is kind of like an informal talk. Like Tom said, if you have questions, please type them in the chat, and we'll, find a time to answer the questions if they get to be too numerous. This happens to be a picture of the bluebird. That's the male. See how brightly colored he is. The female is a more drab blue, and she's not as noticeable, but that's by nature's design. The males are brightly colored to attract the females and to protect the nest. So I'm gonna take this out of my way so I can get started on bluebird talks. Basically, bluebirds are cavity nesters. Modernization has reduced the natural supply of nesting cavities. Farmlands have been reduced, and the wooden fence posts that the bluebirds took a natural use of, they've been reduced as well. And farmlands and pastures are slowly being replaced with buildings and subdivisions, so the natural habitat for these birds is being reduced and causing population to drop. But when we're talking about bluebirds, they're in cavity nesters. We also include chickadees, tree swallows, titmices. They're also welcome cavity nesters in your bluebird houses. But basically, bluebirds, they feed mainly on insects. They love mealworms if you have them, and they love suet cakes. The Wild Birds Unlimited recommended the suet cakes that have insect parts in it. I had this out this winter. I saw bluebirds coming to get some of the suet and the insects that are embedded in it. These suet cakes, you can also get them with berries in it, but the bluebirds like the ones with insects in it. The ones with berries attract, songbirds and things that winter over. And bluebirds, they're here in Tennessee area, our area year round. They also feed on mealworms, and we'll talk more about them later. Let's talk life cycle of the bluebirds. This is the prime year that many people have been reported bluebirds have either started nests or they're starting nests. They normally start nesting in late March to early April. Here in the South, where it's a lot warmer, they may start a little sooner. There's several reports of folks with bluebird boxes that already have a clutch of eggs in them. So this is prime time to get started, and that's why we're having the program here. The bluebirds lay 4 to 5 light blue eggs. Sometimes it can be as many as 6, but usually it's 4 to 5. The incubation period of the eggs is 12 to 14 days. So one of the things that the bluebird aficionados want you to do is to monitor your bluebird nest, but just be careful. Incubation period is 12 to 14 days, and the eggs hatch 17 days after the first one is laid. And typically the bluebird mother will start laying eggs, and it'll take like a 24 to 36 hour period to finish laying all the eggs. So if you look in your nest and you've only got one egg, don't panic. There's more to come. Now, after the eggs are laid, the mom will sit on they'll sit on the eggs for 17 days, and eventually they'll hatch. Now, the babies, after being properly fed and cared for, they will leave the nest in about 7 to 21 days. So in about 3 weeks after you get eggs, the babies will hatch and fly away. And because it's only like a 3-week period, bluebirds in this area can have up to 2 broods or 2 families of bluebirds. They can even have, in my yard, I've seen them have 3 broods, over the season. And what you'll see is as the first nestlings hatch and they start flying around, they will help mama with the next bunch that comes up. So it's pretty neat to see. There is one caution though, when you're monitoring your nest, when the babies are, they got little wings on them and they're 12 to 13 days old, be careful about looking into the nest then, because you could startle the bluebirds and then they may fly out of the nest too soon and they won't have the ability to protect themselves or learn to fly. So at 12 to 14 day, 12 to 13 day area, just be careful when you're looking in there and just be mindful of that. We talked about the bluebird nest itself, because there's quite a bit of competition for the bluebird nest, and I'll call them nest or bluebird boxes or bluebird houses. But when I speak of the nest itself of a bluebird is a neat round cup nest, sometimes lined with in my yard I have a lot of pine straw, so mine are lined with pine straw or some grasses, and that very seldom will they have feathers in them. The chickadee nest will have feathers lining their nest, but if you get a nest that looks like it's like a jumble of sticks, that's probably a house sparrow or a wren. So just be mindful that when you look in, you can help determine what type of bird is in your nest by the nest it makes. When it comes to bluebird boxes, there's several commercial ones, but I'm going to show you some examples of the one I made. This is okay. This is a house made from the plans similar to the North American Bluebird Society plans. It's got adequate ventilation. It's got a hole here in front with a predator guard on it, but not most of them don't have that. And it has you can see it's got drain holes in the bottom. That's one of the things, if you purchase a bluebird house, from a online or from some commercial big box store, make sure it has some ventilation and drainage holes. That's one of the key things, especially here in the South, because these things, they can get hot because they'll have nests on into July. So this is, if they nest in April, in 3 weeks, it'll be May and June, and then June and July. So it can get very hot in there, so you want to have some ventilation. And these bluebird boxes, you should refrain from putting them on trees or on a fence post or fences, because it makes it easier for squirrels to get to it, makes it easier for the snake predators to get to it. But these typically we mount them. The National Bluebird Society recommends mounting them on straight pipe, electrical conduit pipe, that sort of thing. Makes it harder for squirrels to get to it, harder for snakes to climb up. And if you go on the website, you see some discussion about predator guards to keep snakes and squirrels from getting to it. And another note, we're talking about predators. The local house cats are big time. They do a lot of predation on birds. So if you have a cat that's indoor, outdoor, if you could keep them indoor, that'd be better for the native birds. But if he has to be indoor, outdoor, just be aware of it, or put a bell on him to keep him from getting to the birds. Now here's an old bluebird house. Same design, but you'll see the front is chipped out. It could have been a squirrel, or it could have been a woodpecker. Either one of them would round that hole out so they can get in, because woodpeckers, typically the ones that will do this kind of work, they're a lot bigger than the bluebirds, so they make the hole bigger so they can look in it. And the woodpeckers also looking, because this is the same wood, but this is like 10 years older. So this wood looks like an old tree. So the woodpecker thinks there's bugs in there, so he'll peck on the house, trying to get to the bugs that normally nest in older barn-looking wood. But this is how new one looks. This one doesn't even have the hole cut out in yet, but this is the new design of the bluebirds. This is how they look new. Just be aware. That's why we ask you to monitor them, because when this happens, then any number of predators can get in here and attack the bluebirds. Now, mama will still make a nest in something like this, but it won't be as safe. I got a personal story about bluebird predation. I made a house for my sister-in-law who lived down in Atlanta, and I was new to the program, so we installed her bluebird house on her fence, privacy fence, that she could see from her kitchen. And one day she was washing dishes, checking out her bluebirds in their bluebird house, and she saw a chipmunk come across the fence and go in the hole. And she thought, oh, that's so cool, so cute, little chipmunk going in the hole. Until the chipmunk came out with a brand new baby nestling. And so she was all in arms. She said, what can I do? And she kind of shook my head. It's the circle of life. So we started looking at other ways to mount it. And we saw where we could put it on a pole. So that next time I visited her in Atlanta, I put hers on a pole. She didn't have any problems after that. And still had bluebirds. Of course, the bluebird dad is very protective. They work together as a pair. And so the bluebird dad, if he was there, he would have chased the chipmunk off, but he was out getting food or something. Another thing about bluebird boxes, if you buy one or purchase one, notice it doesn't have a perch on the front of it. If it has a perch on it, then a starling or a house sparrow can sit on that perch and peck in there and hurt the babies. The bluebirds don't need a perch. In fact, in my yard, I've seen the bluebirds come from 2 yards away and go straight into the hole and not miss a beat. So no perch. And the bluebird should be mounted. This entry hole should be about 5 feet tall. I say head high, but it's usually 5 foot tall. And face it away from the prevailing winds, or don't face it due west, because that due west harsh sun in the summer, would tend to make the birdhouse a little hotter. So if it's facing due west, kind of move it so you can take advantage of the shade from this overhang. That being said, if that's the only way you can face it and enjoy it from your kitchen or patio or deck, by all means, place it that way and let mama and daddy make their adjustments. This is an old house I gathered from somebody's property. They weren't using it anymore, so I said, don't throw it away. I'll take it. But notice this one is high and tight. It doesn't have any drain holes nor ventilation. So this was an old nesting box somebody had made. It looks good, but we don't recommend it anymore. This would be good for someone to paint up and use as a decoration somewhere. And speaking of mounting boxes, that to reduce the amount of competition between birds, that each bluebird house should be at least 100 yards apart, according to the websites I've been reading. But in my neighborhood, we're not 100 yards apart, so I just tell people put them up and then let the bluebirds determine their own territory. I have 2 bluebird houses in my 80-foot wide subdivision lot. And I typically get one set of bluebirds in one, and the other one, the bluebird dad, just kind of protects and patrols the area and doesn't let anybody get in it. Tom, this would be a good time to pull up one of those pictures if you got them. Yeah, that video, that's at my house where the dad is feeding on mealworms. And that mealworm, that whole system there, that comes from Wild Birds Unlimited. It's a shameless plug for them. They're not sponsoring this video. It's just that's where I got mine from. And that mealworm container, it's a white clear container. Mealworms can't climb out. It has drainage holes in it. And you can't see it on the pole, but I put a bicycle ringer, a little ring on the top. So when I put mealworms in, I ring the bell hoping I could train the bluebirds. But you can see on the left, the daddy's there guarding where mom is picking out on mealworms, and they head off to where the bluebird house is. From this video, my actual bluebird house is down on I've got a little embankment, it's down on the hill there. But the mealworms, it's popular with bluebirds that love it, but they're not a complete nutrition source for them. So, don't feed them mealworms all day long. You know, one, it's expensive, and two, it's not a complete nutrition for the mama. She will, if she has a nest of bluebird babies, she will feed them mealworms until they're gone. But make her go out in the world and get, because they normally feed on insects out in the world. So, you know, we being gardeners, we want some of these harmful insects eaten up by the bluebirds. And that's one of the benefits of having bluebirds, is they tend to eat some insects out there. But like I said, the mealworms don't provide complete nutrition for the birds, so they need a variety of food sources. And a lot of other birds, like wrens, love the mealworms. And I've had a couple people tell me that squirrels love the mealworms. So if you put mealworms out, understand the bluebirds will come and find it. And that's an enticement to have bluebirds nest in your yard if they have food source. So if they have that food source of mealworms, they may tend to stay. And just to the left of the mealworms, you see a bird bath. So the bluebirds, to be successful in your neighborhood or in your yard, they need three things. They need food, shelter, and a habitat. So, and water. So if they have food, shelter, water, and a habitat, they will be successful here, and they'll stay and they'll come back year after year. Especially when mom has 3 broods, you know, those new babies are imprinted in your neighborhood, so they tend to stay in that area. So once you have bluebirds, your success rate goes up tremendously. And here's a picture, and these, last year I put a camera in this birdhouse, and here's a picture of Daddy feeding them. And I found out that my camera doesn't focus as well. Did you see what big a bird, insect they have to feed the little babies? But when the pandemic hit last year, I provided these videos for people who couldn't get out and do stuff. So it was pretty cool to watch these babies grow up on video. And this is Dad feeding. And what I've observed is when mom's on the nest, Dad will bring mom food. So she doesn't have to go out very often to feed herself, because he'll bring her some food. But once the babies hatch, then mama and daddy take turns bringing food to the little nestlings. These are not more than 3 or 4 days old, but they're already opening their mouths wide to get food. And if you're monitoring your nest, you know, you can look in on these, and you will get mom and dad. They will come back and try to fly at you and make a little chirping sound and try to get you away from the nest. So you may not see them, but they're close. Okay. And this one, can you show it over again, Tom? If you listen closely, you hear Dad make a sound, and then the babies will immediately open their mouths to get fed. And this is a picture of the bluebird mom. The flashing you see on the camera, that's the camera I've got has an infrared. So if it gets dark, it'll go to black and white, infrared looking kind of video. But in bright daylight, it turns blue. And this picture is going to show, these are the mama eating now I think only 1 or 2 of the babies have hatched. And mama is cleaning the nest by eating the eggshells. So I guess that's nature's way of cleaning the nest and also replacing the calcium in her body that she used to make the eggs in the first place. And I've never read the fact that the bluebirds ate their own shells. We just happened to capture it on video. So I learned a lot last spring when I put the camera in the nest. You'll see mom, when she sits on the nest, she'll just kind of fluff. Whenever I showed my wife the picture, she would, instinctively fluff her nest too, so it was pretty cool. Even I show her the video now, she'll just mimic the mama bluebird. But that's just one of the ways that that mama does to keep the bluebird nest nice and tidy while the babies are growing. Now this video, these are a lot older, and Daddy has come to the nest and he's fed one of the birds. And we'll show you how Daddy helps to clean out the nest. See that bird at the top putting the poop sack out? And here comes Daddy, taking the poop sack. Like Daddy did more of the poop sack duty than Mom did. But the babies, as soon as he feed them, you know, the one that he fed would turn upside down and poop out a poop sack, and Daddy would carry it away. They'd carry it pretty far away to drop it off. And that's how they keep the nest clean. Not all birds do the poop sack thing, but bluebirds do. Now, you know, at the end of when these babies hatch, and these babies are just about ready to hatch, and when the babies hatch or they leave the nest, it's called fledging. These babies, they were about ready to fledge last year when a tornado hit. I got busy doing other things, and I didn't keep up the videos on the babies. And when I came back after the tornado, the babies had flown away. They made it through the tornado, but shortly after the tornado, all the babies flew away. It was pretty cool. I just want everybody to see the poop sack business. Can you rewind it again? So you sure. Usually when I do this talk in front of a live audience, people see the poop sack and they but that's Daddy's job, and it keeps the nest clean. Watch the bluebird baby up top. He's gonna stand up and deposit his poop. Good job, Dad. It's tough being a dad, but you know it's rewarding work. These are mealworms from Wild Birds Unlimited. Let's see if they've come alive here. I'm just going to put some on the paper so you can see them. So they're in this. I had them in the refrigerator so they wouldn't be. These are actual mealworms. Like I said, the bluebird mom loves them. She'll pig out on these as long as they're available. But these mealworms, they don't cause humans any harm. They're actually the larval of the darkling beetle. There's a whole process to grow these your own, but it's an extensive process. I'll just go to Wild Birds Unlimited and buy them, or you can actually buy them online as well. If they once they warm up, when you put them in the sun, they'll be a lot more wiggly, a lot more active. And that's what gets the birds' attention. And then they'll come and eat the mealworms. You can also get dry mealworms, but the bluebirds don't prefer them as much. So what I do, if I want to feed a lot of mealworms, I'll get the live ones and the dry ones. And I put about, a tablespoonful of the live ones in the bottom and the dry ones on top. And the action from the live ones will make the dry ones look more active, and the bluebirds, they'll pick through the dry ones to get the live ones, and eventually they'll eat some of the dry ones as well. But you got to make sure these mealworms, because this stuff here is called I think it's some kind of grain or sawdust or something that they live on. But that will get wet and it'll turn nasty, funky if it gets wet or rainy. So you got to keep it dry so it lasts a little longer. But that's the mealworms. I did mention about the bluebird trails. If you haven't heard or haven't seen any talk about it, the Tennessee Society Tennessee Bluebird Society wanted us to start a chapter here in this area of Hampton County, Cleveland. So we did that. We're calling it the TriState Bluebird Society, and that's for people in Chattanooga, North Georgia, Alabama, Cleveland area. So it's a small group. We're just starting. And one of the things that the Tennessee Bluebird Society and the Tri-State Society is pushing, that's the establishment and the monitoring of different bluebird trails. If anybody lives in the Hickson area, Greenway Farms has an extensive collection of bluebird houses that's been monitored by a doctor from UTC. There's a bluebird trail. So we're looking for areas to put trails up and to get volunteers to help monitor those trails. The ideal places would be, golf courses, churches with walking tracks, even schools with walking tracks. So we're just starting. So just look for those kind of announcements and look for more information. The TriState Bluebird Society will be connected to Master Gardeners pretty tightly, because half the members of the society at this point are Master Gardeners. So we should get that going pretty good.
The tree trunk house doesn't have any holes for air and drainage. Should I try to make holes?
Yes, the drainage, you should try to do the drainage and some air holes. If you said it's a tree trunk.
It says the tree trunk house doesn't have any holes. Tree trunk.
Okay. If for ventilation, I would go near the top of the Bluebird house and drill some holes into it to get air, but angle the hose upward into the house. That way, if it rains, it won't catch the hole and get in the house. And the drainage hole, just put 2 or 3 drainage holes on the bottom. Yeah, this one, the bottom is just, they cut the corners off to make it drain better. But if you could put like 2 or 3 holes in the bottom, it will drain, say like a 1/2 inch, 2 or 3 1/2 inch holes. I don't know how big that tree log house is, but a couple 3 holes will be fine. Now the Bluebird nest will sit on top of the hose, so you won't be able to see that it can drain. If there's an intrusion of water in there, it will eventually drain out. And the vent hose, I do a couple of vent holes on both sides, angling it up just so you can have some ventilation.
How often should you get into the Bluebird box? And what are you checking for? Do you need to clean out the box in between nests?
One of the things you have to watch out for is when the bird makes a nest, when the bird makes a nest, the nest will actually come about halfway up. And then from that part up, you'll see evidence of poop on the side. So you should, after each nest, you clean it out and hit it with a brush. And they don't recommend necessarily sanitizing anything. Just take a spatula or blade and just scrape it out, let it dry, and then close it back up. The nest that I had the camera in last year, after the Bluebird family left, a wren came and made a nest, and so the nesting material went from this high all the way to the edge of the hole, and the wren was kind of like made like a tunnel in there. So maybe if I had taken that nest out, the wren wouldn't have made a nest in there. But they recommend taking out the nest material between each brood. Just scoop the nest into a little plastic bag and throw it away, because that nesting material has all ingredients to make compost. And I've seen Bluebird boxes where they made a nest in and the nest got wet. It has some dirt in there. It has poop, nitrogen, bird poop when it was mostly nitrogen. So it composted in the nest, and we got carpenter ants in there. So that's a good reason to clean the nest out and to monitor the nest. The Bluebird, how often to monitor the nest is based on the houses. On the Bluebird trails, I recommend monitoring it once a week. And the Bluebird Society, they're going to monitor these nests once a week. And they have a form for monitoring the nest. And that form is turned into Cornell University. And Cornell collects all information, to get some idea about the health of the Bluebird population, all over the Southeast. Because Bluebirds, they nest in all the warm areas of the Southeast, all the way up to Maine, and they go up to Maine and all the way down to Louisiana and Texas. But bear in mind when you monitor nests, be mindful of that 12 to 13 day period where the Bluebirds, they've got feathers, they're trying to get ready to go. So when they're 12 to 13 days old, if you check on it, you may prompt them to leave sooner than they need to. And the video where we were watching last spring, the baby birds would take turns flapping their wings when they got some feathers on them to build strength so they could get ready to fledge.
Nice. So that's one thing people could be looking for then and checking for is the development of the feathers on the bird.
You know, once they get fully feathered and start looking more like bluebirds, because I think in my clutch I had 5. I had 3 boys and 2 girls. I had names on them, but I forgot. Blossom, and my daughter sent me a name and they came up with some different names.
Oh, someone here is curious. If you build your own, can you put a decorative perch on it, or is it best not to?
Well, if you build your own and put a decorative perch on it, I'd leave it in the house as a decoration and not use it as an active birdhouse. The bluebird house that you want bluebirds to live in don't need a perch. And if you go to the North American Bluebird Society webpage, they have plans that you can use to build your own bluebird houses.
How many broods do they have a year?
They have 2 broods a year on average, but they can have. I've had 3 broods in my backyard, and you can get 4 or 5 depending on the weather, depending on the food source, and depending on predation or something that ate them up. But so if you do 4 babies times 3 nests, that's 12 babies a year. So if you and your neighbor and your neighbor's neighbor, you could really help the bluebird population if you put bluebird houses up, because they typically have four babies a year, 4 babies a brood, and do up to 3 broods or 3 families a year. To recap, the birds need food, shelter, and water. And speaking of bird, I'm sure most people if you're going to do bluebird watching, or if you're aficionado of nature in general, put a bird bath in your yard, but don't get a real deep bird bath. Get a real shallow bird bath. That it may require you to put water in it once a week, but that's okay. That's what you want, because you want to keep the water changed out. You want a shallow bird bath, pretty big, because if I use the same analogy, we don't take a bath in a swimming pool. So birds won't come to bird baths that are really deep. Those big decorative porcelain ones, they look pretty, but they probably won't get the action that a one made out of ceramic. The ones I have in my yard are made out of cement, and they're about 2 inches deep in the center, and they get real shallow toward the edge. And the bluebirds, all the birds take turns, in the blue bath. The robins love bird baths, bluebirds, wrens, and even squirrels come to my bird bath. I don't push squirrels. I'm a squirrel hater, but I let them have the water too. They need a drink. But put some bird baths out in your yard, and put multiple bird baths out. I've got 2 in my backyard. And like I said, it's 80 foot wide and maybe 40 foot deep. I've got 2 on stands, and I've got 1 that's just a bird bath lid laying on some rocks, flat on the ground. So, the bird baths flat on the ground puts the birds at risk for a local cat to get them. But the one I have, the bird bath I have, just a lid on the ground, gets just as much action as the 2 I have that are on pedestals.
We have a quick question. Our last question that popped up: are baby bluebirds a lot smaller than adults? How can you identify the babies?
The baby bluebirds you saw in the video, they're real tiny when they're first born, come out of the egg. But as they get bigger, the juvenile bluebirds are actually bigger than the male and the female. The juveniles are bigger and fluffier, and they tend to lose weight as they fly more and get more on their own. But when they fledge, they're actually bigger than the mother and the father. And if you feed mealworms after they fledge, you may be lucky enough to see, the juvenile bluebirds following mom and dad around begging for food. And you'll see the dad come up to a bluebird, the fledgling that's a little bit bigger than he is until they become independent. But the The fledglings are the same color as the mom and dad, but they'll be fluffier and not as streamlined looking. And they're a lot noisier too, begging for food.
Carlton, I want to thank you very much for coming today and giving a great presentation here at this fabulous place that we have a recording studio down here.
I appreciate the opportunity to get more people involved in stuff.
Thank you.
Oh, as a personal note, the Bluebird house that I had the camera in, the chickadees got in there first, so I think I'm going to have a family of chickadees this year. But we'll see. It's like a little drama going on in my backyard. I'll keep you posted.
We look forward to that. Alrighty, guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much for logging on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.